Hello everyone. So in today's lecture we are going to discuss about two important equations in electrostatics called as Poisson and Laplace equation. And the development of Poisson and Laplace equation is fairly simple if we know point form of Gauss law. Okay, so we start by writing point form of Gauss law, that is diversion of D is equals to rho V. And in medium which is homogeneous, that is say a material property do not depend on where you are inside the medium. So for example, in vacuum, if you do not matter where I am standing, where I am positioned, because D and E will relate by a simple number, and the properties are actually independent of where I am standing in free space. So such a medium where the material property do not change as we go along the medium is called homogeneous medium. Now if the medium property do not change as the change of the direction, if there is no directional dependence on of the result, then the medium is called as isotropic. So if material property do not depends on the direction of the applied electric field, then it is called isotropic medium. So if you consider such a homogeneous, isotropic and static medium, that is the medium property are not varying with time, I can write down a relationship between D and E as epsilon naught into epsilon r. We have discussed about relative permeability earlier itself. Okay, and it is a number. Since it is a number, if we put this equation in Gauss law, what we will get? We will get this to be on the outside of del. Okay, so this is a number. This will be just a number which, and it is not even dependent on x, y and z. It is not a function of x, y and z because the medium is homogeneous, hence it will came out of the del property, even integral. So this will become epsilon naught into epsilon r del dot E is equals to rho V. Okay, let's call this product epsilon naught into epsilon r as epsilon. Okay, so if I call this epsilon on this side, you will get del dot V is equals to rho V by epsilon. In fact, this this epsilon is equals to epsilon naught, what you have is a point form of Gauss law in free space. So this is free space Gauss law. Del dot E is equals to rho V by epsilon naught. Okay, now I also know that electric field can be written as minus del V, where V is the electrostatic scalar potential. It is an electrostatic scalar potential, and in terms of that I can now how to write E. E will be equals to minus del V, and substituting this in this equation, what you will get is del dot del V is equals to minus rho V by E. Okay, minus sign can be taken outside the integral. Okay, so let me remove minus signs from left hand side and put on the right hand side. The quantity that we have written here is del dot del V comes up often in electrostatic, and in another word, this is actually Laplacian, which we have studied in our unit 1. So this is also an operator, and this operator in a Cartesian coordinate system is very simple. Okay, so Laplacian is denoted by del square V. It's denoted by del square, and it is in terms of del square operator or Laplacian operator. The equation that we are working on is del square V, okay, equals to rho V by epsilon. Okay, so this is the equation that we are working with, and you have to come with a stage this. Okay, now this is known as Poisson equation. Okay, very important equation. We are going to solve this equation later. Now in the next slide, suppose you are considering the reason when there is no free charge that rho v is equals to 0. If you consider performing this diversion and not taking del operator and applying this point form in a region where charge density is 0, you end up with a simplified equation called Laplace equation. Okay, so these two equations can thought of as a source equation. What are sourcing? These are sometimes called as source equation. So it is important to know what they are sourcing. What they are sourcing is, if rho v is specified, if rho v the charge density is specified, then you can use this equation to obtain the scalar voltage potential. So if charge density everywhere is specified, you can use Poisson equation to obtain the value of V. And of course charge density is 0. If charge density is 0, you can use this equation to obtain the potential V everywhere in the space. Now from V, by applying V del operator, I can obtain electric field. Okay, so I can obtain electric field from V, and in this process you can realize that the source for electric field is actually a charge distribution. So we will writing similar equation, and we will be finding source equations for magnostatics later, and we will find the source equation for magnostatic field, magnetostatic later, and magnostatic field will be the current. The source equation of magnetostatic field will be current. The source of electrostatic field is charge. The source of magnostatic fields are current, and a time varying magnetic field can be source of time varying electric field, and time varying electric field can be source of time varying magnetic field. That will be the law of electrodynamics. So we have Poisson equation and we have Laplace equation, and the expression for Laplacian can also be written them down, and we will be solving this equation. Okay, so I just show you in a few steps how to get Poisson and Laplace equation. Now so far we have discussed about technique of electrostatic problem solving. Now in this class we will look at solution of Laplace and Poisson equation. These problems are typically classified as boundary value problem. Whether the solution that we found were the only possible solution that we could find, or if there is only possible solution, under what condition will that solution be unique. Okay, so the question is very important, because one might, for example, have a situation where two of you might work separately and actually get solution of Laplace equation with the given boundary conditions. Now what is guarantee that these two solutions are going to be different, right? If they are same, if they are different, so if they are same, that is good. But because no matter what method you apply to attack the problem, you always end up with unique solution. However, if the solution is not unique, there is no guarantee that the solution obtained with different approach are unique. Then there is always no hope of solving such particular problem, right? So we will look at today a theorem which tells us the condition that are necessary to guarantee that the solution of Laplace equation, that the solution obtained, or the different methods are going to be same when they applied to give applied to the given problem, when it is good, because you find solution is one in one method which might be easier to evaluate compared to the other method, then you are guaranteed that you have actually solved the problem, or you will be confident that there is no other solution that is possible for a given scenario. Okay, so the problem plus the boundary conditions. So we begin with Laplace equation and explore what are the conditions that are necessary for this equation to have a unique solution. Anyway, Laplace equation is much more, soluble than Poisson equation, or occur much more naturally than Poisson equation. So we will be concentrating mostly on Laplace equation. So we will be hardly be having any use of epsilon, that not a constant. Okay, so with that in mind, let us explore what are the conditions that are necessary for this solution that we obtained of the equation to be unique. So the solution of uniqueness of the solution is actually captured what is called a uniqueness theorem. Okay, so we will be dealing with this uniqueness theorem in a qualitative way. So we will not consider mathematical problem that might real mathematical problem that might arise, but for our purpose the theorem will be developed sufficiently so that you will confident that if you solve Laplace equation or Poisson equation with a given boundary condition, then you have obtained only one solution, and the solution is going to be unique. Okay, so what is the uniqueness theorem? To develop that, consider a surface first, S. Okay, I am considering S surface, and this surface S also bounded a particular volume. Okay, enclose a particular volume, and for a moment let us not put any source inside. Okay, so we have no source, no conductor inside that second part of the theorem, that we are not going to consider in this subject. Okay, for now there is no conductor or no charge that are specified inside. So clearly this is the situation where we can apply Laplace equation, because del square V will be equals to 0 throughout this surface or throughout this region, which is the characterized the surface S and corresponding enclosed volume V. Okay, of course the Laplace equation is just that. You need to supplement this equation certain boundary condition, the value of potential at boundary. So if I specify the value of potential at boundary, V at boundary, then I will be able to solve this equation and obtain a solution. Okay, otherwise the solution that we obtain will be quite general. If you are confused about this boundary and what the solution that is not required the boundary condition, just consider an analogous equation, d square x is not in subscript, it is here, x, d square x by dt square. Okay, where x is the function of t. If this is equals to 0, then if you integrate this equation once, you will get dx by dt is equals to a constant, right? You integrate once more, you get x of t, here it is x of t, sorry, so let us look at that, and the following that I will do is, instead of talking about v, I will use function psi. Okay, I want to use this one because I want not to because voltage is potential and psi is different thing. Psi is also same kind of function, but I want to be little more general, therefore I am considering psi. Okay, however, when we talk about unique theorem in time varying case, we will see that electrostatic potential need to be replaced by different kind of potential. So in that case it is to be little more general. So I am using to switch, I'm going to switch the notation from v to psi. Okay, and I want to get a particular result from vector analysis, and the result can be obtained looking at this quantity. So consider diversion of psi, gradient of psi. So we have seen this earlier when we were developing the curl equation or something, when we were developing this. Okay, so suppose if I have a scalar function f and vector field g. Okay, and if you multiply scalar function with vector function or a vector field, you still end up being with a vector field. Then del dot gf, which is the quantity, so the diversion of this quantity is given by f del g plus g field del f, right? Del f give you vector field. When you dot multiply with vector, you are going to get scalar. Okay, similarly it will give you scalar multiply by scalar, you will get scalar itself. So all we are having is scalar now. So this is vector quantity that we are going to use in this contest. So you have diversion of psi del psi. Okay, now you put those values, you will get this equation. Okay, by putting in this equation you will get this. Now if you will see this term, the first term has to be equals to 0. Why? Because in a surface that I am considering, the Laplace equation tells me that del V is equals to 0. Potential, del of potential is equals to 0, and psi is essentially a potential that we are considering. So this fellow must be equals to 0. So 0 multiplied by psi is 0 itself. So this entire term is equals to 0. So what we are left out with is this quantity, which is completely positive or greater than or equals to 0, right? So it can at most be equals to 0, but it can never be negative. Why it can't be negative? Because this is magnitude. Whenever you take magnitude of particular number, that number will always be positive, or at most 0 when the number itself is 0. So starting with this relationship of del dot psi gradient psi is equals to del psi square. So the next step for us would be to integrate over the volume that this region or the surface is enclosing. So if I integrate this over a volume, I get both the side. I have to do this integration, of course. So I integrate this one over a volume, and if I do that on the right hand side, I am integrating this quantity over the volume. Now I know what is diversion theorem or Gaussian diversion theorem, which allow me to convert integral of this nature into surface integral, right? So I can convert this into a surface integral. So this right hand side do not change, it remains the same. So now we came to important part in this theorem. If you look at this left hand side, okay, so by using Gauss theorem, it will be is equals to closed surface f, or you can say d dot ds. Okay, so this is my Gauss theorem, which allow me to convert integral of this nature into a surface integral, right? So I can convert this into a surface integral. Expect that the surface should be closed. If you are unsure about this, recall how we use this relationship for developing the point form of Gauss law. Okay, so this was the divergence theorem that we used, and using divergence theorem, but on this quantity I can replace the volume integral of diversion of quantity into a surface integral of that quantity. Okay, and right hand is same. Now we come to important part of this theorem. Okay, if you look at the left hand side, you have some surface area, and I'm not talking any other surface area, this surface area which is closed. So this surface area that we are considering and the corresponding volume that the surface enclosed. Okay, ds bar is a vector surface element, right? So if you consider this surface, this small patch, this small patch that I'm considering as differential surface ds, this surface element has an area of ds, but it would be pointing in the direction that is normal to the contour here. So surface has a certain contouring normal, that contour is normal to the surface, and vector surface element ds bar is actually given as n hat ds, that is magnitude of ds, the differential surface area of the surface that we are considering at that particular point. But it would be pointing, the vectors element would be pointing normally to the surface contour. Okay, and that is given by n hat direction. Now go back to this expression over here. The left hand side has a closed surface integral, so we can make it n hat ds. Okay, so the operation is actually happening between del psi and n, right? Because that is the vector and this is the vector, so this product is happening between these two elements. So if you recall, what was this del psi is essentially the electric field that is proportional to electric field. There is minus sign here somewhere, but it is not really important to us. What is important is that del psi is proportional to E. If you remember, E was equals to minus del V, and del V is nothing yet del psi. Okay, so we are just taking that. Minus sign is not important, so we are just taking E. So it is del psi is proportional to E in this situation, where I am considering material medium property to describe a constant psi, and then if I multiply this one psi and psi on both the side, I will get flux density. Now flux density would be coming out in this direction. This is my flux density. So if this is my flux density d, it would be coming out in the given direction. Okay, so this d into ds will simply tells me that is the normal component of flux density that you are looking at, of course after multiplying epsilon. So it is clear that even if it is not dn, if the material medium is there, then it would be proportional to en. Okay, so del psi dot n is differential of psi with respect to x. So del, this would very well be a quantity which is En, the normal component of electric field at the surface area. Okay, this is one thing, you just keep in mind this one. We will be requiring it after a certain time. There is another interpretation over here. Consider a parallel plate. Okay, so I know that electric field would be uniform, assuming that plates are quite wide in width and length compared to the separation between them. So electrical field would be vertically pointing downward. So what if I consider this surface area, a small surface area around this one. So the surface area, let say I place capacitor in x direction, okay, and this is the plate are separated at x equals to 0 and x equals to a. So these are two plates. So since the direction of x I assumed was downward, so what is the normal to the top surface of element area that I am considering? The normal is actually along x direction, correct? So delta psi, well, one interrupt was in terms of electric field, and this is that normal component of electric field. If you expand this delta psi in Cartesian coordinate system, it will have y and z component also. Let us not worry about those terms, because when you taking the product of these two, you left with del psi with del x, different partial of psi with partial x. Okay, so when you are taking product of these two, that is normal to the surface which happens to be in x direction, you will get this. So in general the normal is along n. What is the quantity del psi dot n is telling you is that, so let me highlight this one. Is actually giving you the derivative of potential with respect to normal coordinate, right? So n is any general direction for the normal, then del psi dot n is very interesting. Okay, so now I am rewriting the integration over the surface as a closed surface. Okay, as a closed surface I have psi here, then I have partial differentiation of psi with respect to x, and then ds. Okay, so whatever the surface that we are considering over the entire surface S, this is the integration that we are performing. Okay, so the surface has to be closed. Now look at what is happening inside. You have potential, you have field, and at least normal component of field, and there is a surface ds that you are considering. Now if I imagine that this surface is not just a surface, any surface, but some sort of spherical. Okay, so it must be spherical surface for a certain radius r. Okay, so having a radius measured from some origin, then the surface would be always proportional to r square, correct? So the surface area of spherical is essentially r square. Now I'll ask you this question: when will this integration will approach to 0? When will this contribution of this entire thing goes to 0? Well, I can't just say this to be 0 at a particular value of r. My qualifying condition is that if I start increasing the radius of the sphere to infinity, that is, imagine that I take a sphere and keep on increasing, this distance goes to infinity, then when will the quantity will be equals to 0? So it will be equals to 0 providing when psi, partial of psi with respect to x, goes to at least 1 by r cube. This value is equals to 1 by r cube, correct? It must goes at least 1 by r cube, so that when I multiply this with r square, it will be 1 by r. And so when I put a limit of that r is increasing to infinity, this entire term will goes to 0. Okay, so in another word, our boundaries, right, the potential times the normal normal derivative of potential. This is called normal derivative of the potential at T. So you can see that if this product goes at least 1 by r cube. Why? Because then it will multiply with square and then only I will have r in denominator. So it can be any higher value, but it can't be less than cube if you want this entire thing to be 0. Okay, now this is something that you have seen and you have experienced it when we solved electric field earlier. Consider a point charge. How does the potential of a point charge go? If point charge is q, the potential of point charge is q by 4 pi epsilon r. So the potential is going as 1 by r. V is going as 1 by r. What about electric field of the point? Electric field of the point is going as 1 by r square. So this product of point charge potential and the point charge electric field goes as 1 by r cube. Okay, when we multiply E and V, it will be 1 by r cube. Okay, so if you imagine this as a sphere of radius r, then on the boundary of the sphere the field is actually 1 by r, and as the boundary starts increasing, in another word the sphere radius starts increasing, this r 1 by r terms keeps going to 0. So you will be integrating over an infinite radius of a sphere, but the value of field at each point will essentially be equals to 0. So that the total contribution of integration self is 0. This is very crucial. So the point that we have made is the potential must goes to 1 by r at least, then the gradient of potential also along with normal would goes as 1 by r square. Okay, at least on spherical surface, and for all practical purpose this will work out very well. So the condition at infinity, that is r tends to infinity, is that the potential must drop to 0. Okay, so then this partial differentiation just drop to 0 even faster than the potential. So point charge is, it work very well. The whole point of motivating this one was to show you that left hand side of the equation, this equation will goes to 0. So this equation, the left hand side goes to 0 as r tends to infinity. What about the right hand side? Well, if the left hand side is going to infinity, that simply means that the volume integral of this quantity must be equals to 0. On the sphere of infinite radius, this must certainly be equals to 0. Okay, now let us get back the potential function. Now let us say psi 1 and psi 2 are two solutions of Laplace equation which we have found by two different methods. For example, psi 1 was found by one student and psi 2 was found by another student. Now because of the linearity of Laplace equation, the difference between psi 1 and psi 2, which we will call as psi d, is also a solution of Laplace equation. Okay, because the linearity of the equation, the difference of individual solutions are this solution. So this solution must be valid everywhere. So this expression is completely independent of what type of potential function I choose. So I can put psi and d into the expression and see that psi d del of this square must be equals to 0. Now only way this can happen is when this difference potential is equals to 0. So I am keeping this as 0, which immediately tells you that this psi d should be constant. Then only del of that constant is essentially the slope of the surface would be equals to 0. Okay, now we know that psi d is psi 1 minus psi 2. So it tells you that you and your friend would be having two solution, two difference between two solution would be some constant. Now herself here itself you can argue that constant doesn't really matter to me. Why? Because it is only the potential difference that matters to me. So if I have found a solution which is different from my solution with a constant, I can always, do not consider the constant as the reference or talk about that potential difference, and potential difference is what is counting to me, and the constant doesn't really comes into picture at all. Yes, however, this constant can be used, can be shown to be zero for my situation. How? On the boundary, right, that we have considered is the original problem. On the boundary, the potential is actually specified to some value of psi naught, right? The potential is actually specified. So we have just said that psi 1 is also the solution, psi 2 is also a solution, therefore both psi 1 and psi 2 are equal. So on the boundary, both psi 1 and psi 2 must be the solution, right? Must be the solution, which implies that psi 1 is equals to psi naught and psi 2 is equals to psi naught. Now it is clear that if two quantities are equal to each other or to third quantity, this implies that psi 1 must be equal to psi 2, right? And the constant must essentially goes to 0, because if you try doing that one anywhere else, the constant would actually be equals to 0. So the point here, that for the case that we consider no conductor inside the Laplace equation, the solution of Laplace equations are actually unique. Even the constant of integration doesn't really matter. So the solutions are unique. So you might, for example, be very clever mathematician and you come up with a solution, and your friend may not be mathematically that clever, but he or she is very good in numerical technique, and they come up with a solution. Provided both the solutions satisfy the Laplace equation as well as satisfy the boundary condition, these solutions are unique. Okay, so that's all for today's lecture. Thank you.